All right, guys. I'm sure that my screen probably moved a little bit, and you can tell that it's a different video. But you know, where we left off was principle number 21, and in between that, I switched a load of laundry. And after the last video, I switched a load of laundry and did a few dishes, and I made myself a cup of coffee. Um, so time is a funny thing because since you've been watching, there was like literally just like the video went like this, but in my world, I just went and did a bunch of stuff. Does that have any relevance to A Course in Miracles? I don't know, but I just thought that it was interesting, and I want to keep you guys interested in these videos and not make them too boring and a little bit fun. We don't have to take this stuff so seriously. I don't know that you guys do, but I know that I did for a long time when it came to things that were spiritual. I would take things very seriously, and life too. We have a tendency to take life very very seriously, and I'm not saying to take it in a way that's negative and nonchalant, but maybe the seriousness and the gravity of life. Really, we're learning that we don't need to have that massive. We don't have to have that sense of gravity. We can be light, and the reason we can be light is because of the fact that we have been created by God. We are God's creation, and our true nature is joy. It really is, and so I want to try to bring forth some joy and levity a little bit as much as I can, instead of making this dry and boring. And if it is dry and boring, well, let me know in the comment section. Or I don't know, don't let me know. Whatever, it's all good. Let me move on here. Apparently, I've spent 2 minutes just shooting the breeze here. So let's get back to putting our guns down. Not shooting anything at all. Just delivering the principles of A Course in Miracles. Number 22. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide. So miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide. You believe that what your physical eyes cannot see does not exist. This leads to the denial or a denial of spiritual sight. So here we're using the word sight. Spiritual sight is different from the way we see things with our eyes. So right now I see the room here that I'm in. I can see that, and that's not spiritual sight. So spiritual sight understands that all it's not even necessarily a perceptual thing at all. I don't believe it is. Spiritual sight means seeing things in a true way. And the other word that's used later for this same idea is vision. Vision versus seeing. So right now haven't been introduced to that. So let's sidestep that a little bit. But it says that miracles can be fearful because we do believe that darkness can hide. So why would that be a fearful thing, that we believe darkness can hide? It's a fearful thing because miracles are fearful because if we believe darkness can hide, miracles show us that we maybe don't have any thoughts that we can hide, that there really is no hiding. And so that idea that, I can hide away my mind or from everybody, itself is false, is what they're saying. And then that can lead to fear because, what if people find out about me, bad old me, or this thing that I do, or that thing that I do, or whatever. And ultimately, forgiveness is the path of miracles, is the pathway of miracles. And so forgiveness really allows us to extend our own compassion towards others, in such a way that they no longer are afraid uh, of anything that they may think they're hiding, because that's just the way it is. So really, this statement is really just I'm not going to go into a big exposition. Really, what it's trying to say here is that we believe that darkness can hide. We believe that somehow or the other, different thoughts of ours can be hidden. Things of our life can be hidden. Things we think about can be hidden. What it's saying here is that no, nothing can be hidden. Truly nothing can actually truly be hidden from God or higher selves or even the mind itself. So let us continue. 23. Miracles arrange perception and place all levels in true perspective. This is healing because sickness comes from confusing the levels. Miracles rearrange perception and place all levels in true perspective. This is healing because sickness comes from confusing the levels. So if you guys can recall that we have talked about levels a few times before in these principles of miracles, and levels are basically, let's make it simple, the levels are the physical level and the spiritual level. These are the two levels. And confusing the levels means that believing that the physical level is more real than the spiritual level. And confusing the level means that there's that situation where you believe that the physical world is more real than the inner world or the spiritual world. And in fact, almost denying the existence of a spiritual thing, a spiritual force, a spiritual existence. And what it's going to further is saying that miracles rearrange this perception. It shows us that spirit is what we really are, and this world is an extension of spirit. Truly is an extension of that if we are truly identified with spirit. So really all of our problems have to do with misidentifying with the physical world and believing that to be the first level of reality, and that somehow the world impacts our mind, and our mind is sort of made up by our perceptions. So we think that the perceptions are real, they're already there and everything, and that our mind is affected by that. So we end up being the effect of our perceptions or of the world. We are the effect of the world. That is the confusion. So rearranging that perception is the miracle, because what the miracle does is it shows that no, spirit is at the center, and spirit is ultimately influencing everything, and spirit influences the way we see everything. So it's not that everything we see affects us, it's how we are that affects everything that we see, how we see everything. And that's spiritual sight that they mentioned in the previous principle. So now we are at 24. Miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead. Because you made sickness and death yourself, and therefore can abolish both. You are a miracle, capable of creating in the likeness of your Creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. So this is kind of coming to this place here in this principle where we learn a little bit. We're sort of being pushed into this understanding, which we haven't really heard before this way, was that how great we are. It says you have created, you have made, and again, now let's use the word made versus created. You can see, I almost said, we've created sickness and death, but as A Course in Miracles defines it, sickness and death aren't real according to A Course in Miracles. According to the teachings of the Spirit, sickness and death are illusions. And it says that you made them. I made those illusions. I made them. And that's why they don't use the word create, because creation is only used for real things. Creation is made by the Creator, God. God did not create death. God did not create suffering. God did not create sickness. But my ego, it has created that. It hasn't created it, it's made it. I'm trying to use these words correctly here. Because in normal language and in a normal way, we use the word create to mean to bring about. We bring it about. That's creation. But according to A Course in Miracles, creation is only the highest level of creation, which is godly creation. So, and whatever God creates is eternal. It's based on the laws of eternity. And so, as somebody who's identified with the body, primarily, I may be using spirit, and I may have more spiritual moments than others where I'm more identified with spirit. But I have to admit that I'm not, I oftentimes believe I'm this person who's has a beard and eyes and, these glasses and everything. I'm not too concerned about that aspect of things. However, basically, the reason that there's a confusion between making and creation, and I don't really understand creation. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it. But I can tell you what A Course in Miracles teaches about creation. And I trust that that is more correct than whatever I believe in creation. And I can give you some examples of that. For example, what are the things we make here on the earth? Like, let's say I create something. I create a piece of art, right? So if I create a piece of art, really, did I create the paint? Maybe a factory created the paint, but did they create it? Did they create the substances that created the paint? Maybe they came from plants, plant matter. Maybe that's what created the colors that's in the paint. Some sort of extraction from some kind of plant product. So did we make the plants? Well, maybe somebody grew the plants. Did they make the seed? No. Ultimately, no, we didn't create it. It was already there. So whatever we're doing is some kind of modification. Painting is a transference of something that's already been created, physically at least. The material part has already been created. And that is something I'm modifying and making into a picture of some kind. So that's not really a creation as such. I'm making it. Or I make food. But I don't even, if you look at the word create, it's sort of like true creation. So even if I make food, I didn't make it. I sort of it was already made. The items were already made. So I'm doing something with those material things. But creation is on the spirit level, not even on the material level. So it's very hard to give these examples on a material thing, like food and paintings and stuff. That's material. So I'm not going to really get further into what is making and what is creating. But let's just remember this, that creation comes from God and making comes from our identification with the physical. That's where making happens. So where it says here that miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead because you made sickness and death yourself, it's saying that you made it, which means that your identification with the physical self ended up making death, making sickness. Now that might be a little too much to sort of process sometimes. Like in the beginning, it'd be like, whoa, it's kind of heavy. I mean, I'm making sickness and death. That's me doing that. Well, it's saying, yeah, right now at the stage you're at, you believe in sickness and death, and it's happening from your own mind, and so you're making it. But it says that because you made it, you can abolish it. It's kind of hearkening back to our power, the power of our mind, and the power that we have to decide differently than we've been deciding up till now. And that power is really ours. It's saying that you have the power to make sickness and death. You have that power, and you maybe haven't realized it because we were like, oh, wow, people die, I die, whatever. But it's saying, no, you made it and you can abolish it. So it kind of opens up our mind like, whoa, I can abolish sickness and death. I can raise the dead because I made it up to begin with. And they're saying, yeah, you made up the illusion. You can get out of the illusion, and therefore illness and death don't have to be real. So it's this is a statement that really blows up our mind. And then it says, you are a miracle. You are a miracle. Capable of creating in the likeness of your creator. So now let's remember that it said earlier that miracles are expressions of love. And these expressions, this is the maximal All expressions of love are maximal, and the true miracle is the love that inspired it. So a miracle is a thought, and the true miracle is the love that inspired that thought. So, and it says you are a miracle. So if we kind of put this together with a sort of an equation, is that if miracles come from love, a love inspired the miracle, and the true miracle is the love that inspired it, and it says you are a miracle, therefore you are love. And what is all encompassing can have no opposite. So therefore you are all encompassing, you are love, and that love has no opposite. So if we can tap into this, it says you are capable of creating in the likeness of your creator. So we're capable of creating in the likeness of God. That's our creator, is God. We're capable of creating in that likeness because we ourselves are miracles. And that's not the physical self. That's not this body isn't the miracle. My spirit, my mind, the ideas that come through to my mind, and that ability of those ideas to actually create in a true sense of creation, not making, but creating. Because I made illness and death, which means it's not a true creation. So there's some kind of misunderstanding that's making illness and death. Hasn't gotten to that yet, but it's really saying that I made it. I made up illness and death, but I can abolish it too. I can think like God. I can create like my creator. In the likeness of my creator, because I am a miracle. So maybe I don't recognize that I'm a miracle. Maybe I don't recognize the love. You know, it says that this course does not aim to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. But this course does aim to remove the blocks to the awareness of the presence of love, which is your natural inheritance. So really that love is all encompassing. I am a miracle. But there's these blocks. This course aims to remove at the blocks to the awareness of the presence of love. So the awareness of the presence of love, love is present. Love is present. But the awareness to that presence is what the block is. And this course aims to remove them, and the miracles and our rethinking and our identification with spirit rather than bodily identification ultimately will allow us to create in the likeness of our creator. But we're not there right now. Let's remember that. We're there, technically we're there, but in our minds, we're not expressing miracles all the time. We're not always joyful. We're not always happy. We're not always loving. At least I'm not always loving. And that's all right. It's important to be able to look at that. And we're not here to judge each other. I'm not here to judge myself. I'm here to see how can I go past that? How can these blocks be removed from me so that love's presence can become more real to me, can be real to me, not even more real to me. How can this joy be real to me? All right. So that's 24. 25 says that miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when completed is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all dimensions of time. So this is our introduction to the word atonement. It is used very differently from the traditional religious Christian terminology of atonement. And you're welcome to look that up, what that means in that context of how Christian religion has used the word of Christ's atonement and how we are to atone for things or our sins or whatever. But A Course in Miracles gives us another way of using the word atonement, and it uses that way of understanding atonement consistently throughout this teaching. And it is to accomplish, if you say, oh, well, I need to atone for my sins, the way A Course in Miracles would reinterpret that is atoning means to correct, to have them corrected. So how can sins be corrected? Well, we'll get onto that later, but in a traditional Christian sense, by following Jesus, our sins, we're forgiven for our sins. So in that sense, that when we say miracles are a part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, when completed is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all dimensions of time. It's saying that it's an interlocking chain of forgiveness. That's atonement. So when we're forgiven, when we forgive others, we experience forgiveness, God's forgiveness. We heard that earlier, that one of the number 21 said miracles are signs of forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. You accept God's forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending forgiveness to others. This interlocking chain of forgiveness, when completed, is the atonement. So atonement is the complete forgiveness of all whatever needs to be forgiven. We won't even put a name to what needs to be forgiven. Whether you want to call it sin, whether you want to call it judgment, our own judgments that were inaccurate, that created our anger, whether you want to call it things that happen in the perceptual world, whatever you want to call the thing that needs forgiven, when all of that forgiveness is this interlocking chain, just means that one person is able to forgive another, and then that person is able to forgive another, and so on and so forth. And that ultimately leads to the complete forgiveness of the entire creation, which allows us to experience, that's the blocks to the presence of love, the awareness to the presence of love. Those blocks, through this chain of forgiveness, all those blocks come down, they come tumbling down, and love replaces it all. Love replaces everything that we put in the way of it. And that happens through this interlocking chain of forgiveness. And that interlocking chain of forgiveness, when completed, is the atonement. And this atonement, when it's completed, it's the atonement, but it says that it is happening, it says it works all the time and in all dimensions of time, even though when it's completed, this is the atonement. So it's saying the atonement works in all dimensions because it has been done, is the thing. It has been done. But we don't experience it that way, but the atonement itself is complete. Let's not worry about that. It's not necessary for any of us to understand that right now in any kind of logical way. What is important to understand is that this atonement happens through forgiveness, and that miracles are signs of forgiveness. So we are to learn what miracles are. And right now, it's not even about learning to do a miracle. I'm not asking anybody to go out and do miracles right now. I'm not even getting into that because that's not up to me to explain. Well, all I'm trying to explain is what A Course in Miracles is saying right now. They haven't told us how to do miracles yet. They haven't told us. They're just telling us what a miracle is. What is it? What is a miracle? Thoughts, loving thoughts. Miracles are thoughts. Miracles come from love. Miracles are signs of forgiveness. Miracles, extending forgiveness, when we completely extend forgiveness and everybody, that interlocking chain occurs, that's the atonement. And it happens in all time, in all dimensions of time. Now, number 26, miracles represent freedom from fear. Atoning means undoing. The undoing of fear is an essential part of the atonement value of miracles. So when they say atonement value of miracles, it's saying really this interlocking chain of forgiveness, when completed, is the atonement. So the atonement value of miracles would be the value of a miracle towards the process of atonement. The value of miracles towards the process of atonement has to do with extension of forgiveness. When we extend this interlocking chain of forgiveness, that is the miracles that go towards forgiveness. That is part of this atonement value of miracles. This forgiveness aspect is the atonement value. So whatever helps people reach this atonement is this part of the atonement value of miracles. So it says that atoning means undoing. Miracles represent freedom from fear. The undoing of fear is an essential part of the atonement value of miracles. So part of miracles, part of part of what happens in a miracle, part of the greatest value of a miracle when it occurs, is the undoing of fear. And as we talked about in the introduction, that the opposite of what is all encompassing can have no opposite. It says love, the opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposite. And it says that, so it's really saying that what love has no opposite, but fear is the opposite of love. So really our true nature doesn't have any fear in it. Our true nature is loving, but miracles work. One of the essential parts of miracles is the undoing of fear. So when fear is undone, naturally love is expressed, and that is part of this whole atonement process, is allowing the light to come through when we open the shades, the blinds in the window. And that, the blinds in the window, is the fear. When that's undone, that is the undoing of fear. That is an essential part of the atonement value of miracles, is the undoing of fear. So although miracles may have a lot of love associated with them, another part that's really important to understand about miracles is the undoing of fear aspect. And it says that, another thing, it says miracles represent freedom from fear. So one aspect of miracles is the forgiveness aspect. One aspect of miracles is understanding that the love behind the miracle is the true miracle. And one aspect of understanding miracles is that miracles are thoughts. Now it says that miracles represent freedom from fear. So now we're talking about fear. We haven't talked about fear until now. So now it's saying that freedom from fear is miracles. So we're seeing different angles to help us get a better picture of this entire concept, the really core of what A Course in Miracles is really saying. So anytime fear is removed, anytime somebody, let's say I'm afraid and somebody comes up to me who I trust and they say, Anand, there really is nothing to fear. Everything's going to be okay, And that moment when I trust them, my fear goes down and I'm fine. I'm happy. How can I be fine if somebody just tells me and I believe them that everything's going to be okay? It's in the mind. So when that fear comes down, I feel better. Nothing had to actually change except for me to trust this individual and them coming to me in a loving way. Or so many ways that fear can be dropped in this world. I mean, it could happen through just a statement. It could happen through kind of a more material thing. Maybe you're lacking, you're not able to get your next meal. Somebody is able to give you some food. Maybe you're cold and you're able to, put on a coat and you feel better. That can be miraculous in the sense that it releases you from that fear. It's freedom from fear of getting, super cold, getting frostbite. All right, number 27. A miracle is a universal blessing from God through me to all my brothers. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. So in here it says a miracle is a universal blessing from God through me to all my brothers. Who is the me in this case? Well, my friends, it is Jesus Christ. This is the author of this book, A Course in Miracles. If you had not known that before, now you are being introduced to the fact that this is the teaching of Jesus Christ. And he's saying here that when a miracle occurs, it is a blessing from God through him to all of his brothers. It's not just to one person. Whenever a miracle happens, it is happening to all his brothers, which includes all of the sonship, which includes all of creation. Every single blessing, every single miraculous occurrence is a blessing from Jesus Christ to all of his brothers. And the reason that he's able to do this is because he has completed his atonement. And because he has completed it, he is in a position to be able to help guide us and help give us these thoughts, these miraculous thoughts of love from a source of love that allow us to undo fear. Atoning means to undo, and one part of atoning is the undoing of fear. So undoing wrong perception, that will automatically allow love to flow. So it is a privilege of the forgiven to forgive. So that's just a statement of fact. And so I'm going to take another break here before we move into the next few principles. That was principles, I believe, 22 to 27. So we're moving right along here in these videos, slowly but surely. There's a lot of material here to cover. And we could talk forever about these various principles, and I'm trying not to do that. All contrary to what you may believe, I'm trying to keep it brief.